And welcome. Looks like we're almost all here and everybody's settled in. So we're going to get started. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Shayla Stewart from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. I'm in our Office for College, Career, and Technical Education. I'm here with a whole team, including my colleague Lisa Harney, who's been a driver of the development of the materials and the workshop that you're participating in. So we're thrilled to have you back for day 2. As you know, we got launched before the holidays. Most of you, hopefully many, if not all of you, were there. If this is your first day, welcome. This is going to be a working day. You're going to hear all about it shortly from Dr. Solberg. But on behalf of DESE, we want to welcome you, and we want to reiterate our commitment to this work and our conviction that this College and Career Advising and the use of MyCap are going to make enormous differences for your students and for our state. So we're very thrilled to continue to work with you on this very critical project. And before we get going, we have a few remarks from our host, Bridgewater State University, from our good colleague and former colleague of mine in Brockton, Mary Waldron. Mary, come on up. I don't even know your title. You've got to tell your own title. Thank you, darling. Yes.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bridgewater State University. My name is Mary Waldron, and I'm the director of, ready for this, the Institute for Policy Analysis and Regional Engagement.
Nice.
I give that up, right? We do lots of things, and that engagement piece of my title is really one of the reasons why you are here today. On behalf of President Clark, who is a lot taller than I am, but President Clark is committed to education, and as you may know, Bridgewater State University is the largest producer of teachers in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So how many of you are alums of Bridgewater?
Woohoo! Whoa!
Go Bears! But the title was really interesting, you know, going deep in all the elements and the career advising. President Clark serves on many regional entities that talk about the engagement of careers and workforce and education and economic development, and it's all tied in. And our conversations about the very reason why you're here, so that we have these dialogues, not when it's too late, but as it begins. So when we're talking about our students on our campus, they also know about the need and the trends, being an entrepreneur and being able to support them, not only academically, but also if you're a parent of a student, you want to make sure that they end up with a career. So this work that DESE's doing, along with your work that you do within each of your schools and districts, is so vital. And Bridgewater State University is happy to host not only this today, but we'll be seeing you again in March. So thank you for being here.
And now let's bring up Dr. Solberg. Come on up, Scott.
80% of you responded to the evaluations, which is absolutely spectacular, and one of them was coffee. Seemed to be one of the common themes. And since this is not funded directly from the state, they went back and they found a way to get you coffee. Now the treats were a little extra. Wasn't expecting that, but it's really nice. So we have DESE to thank for that and really appreciate that. It also gives you another reason when we do the evaluation after this, really encouraging you to give the feedback, because we actually go through it quite in teams, and we summarize, and we really take to heart some of the pieces there. So today we've got the internet. Did everyone get on the internet? We did have an IT person here. Is anyone still having trouble? Oh, they're with you now. We've got the help, so good. So we have someone help. I think it's the center of the room is the problem. There must be some vortex that's happening there. We'll get there. Again, welcome. This is phase 2, workshop number 2, where we're actually getting into the design of your college and career advising program. How many of you are new this time? This is the first time you're coming in. We've got 2, 3, or 4. Okay, great. So thank you, welcome. So we're going to come back for the third one, and that's where we're really going to dig into the implementation. And we've got work to do between this session and the next one to really figure out how we're going to do it. Today is the fun day. Today's the day where we get to play, take a look at what you've already got going on, see how well what you're doing fits within the kinds of things we talked about last time. Are we engaging in the SEL skills? Is there self-exploration going on? Is there all the different phases of the career development process? And so I'm going to ask you to be open to being challenged as we talk about your examples and how we might change them and tweak them. We did this workshop, we can't hear? We did this workshop last week, and people came up afterwards saying the best part was when we took the mic around and said, give us your great ideas. And so as teams are sharing different activities and different things they're trying to do, that's where we get the real buzz on, and that's what we're hoping to get to today as well. To get ready for today, or for the components to get ready for today, it was important that you did your objectives, the learning objectives. Is everyone able to get access to those learning objectives? Because we're going to use those as your starting point. You're actually going to talk about those to get started for today to see what you came up with. And you should have another team at your table, so we want you to be able to share back and forth so you can see what kind of objectives you came up with. That's an important piece. And then we're going to, what we're going to do after that is we're going to have a piece on that caring and encouraging adult behavior we talked about that's so critical to doing this work. We're going to do an exercise, and Desi has a wonderful exercise to help us kind of take a look at where we might not, we might have our own biases. We all have biases, and how those can play out. And what we're wanting to do is basically showcase for ourselves the value of looking at those biases, so that when you go back to work with your school, you're going to be thinking about how can we intervene on that level as well. So you're going to get a great example today, a pretty powerful one, a real one from one of our members of the Desi community, and though she can't be here today. It's a really good one, but we're thinking this is the kind of conversation we have to have back at your schools as well. So an example for that. And then we're going to go right into the design. You're each going to be choosing one grade level, as we talked about, to work on, and you're going to be hammering out your kind of a sequence of lessons. You've already done mapping, so you've already looked at the kinds of things you're doing. You may start with those. I'm going to then come around, we're going to share. I'm going to, like I said, be open to being challenged, just we might tweak some of those in a way to fit with the model. And then at the end of in the afternoon, we're going to do two things. We're going to look at the ideas you have in relation to how well they fit within the principles we spoke about in workshop 1. Then we're also going to talk about how are we maximizing our connections with families, how are we maximizing connections with our community-based organizations, our employers, really looking at the whole picture. So we have a lot of fun things to do today. Today's kind of the brainstorming. It's the sort of the let's imagine, let's think through, and let's be ready to be flexible and kind of relook at our practice. That's what we're doing today. We're not going to get stuck on how many lessons, how many activities yet. We're just going to map out what we want. Then we'll have the part going from workshop 2 to 3, where we'll have webinars with you to start talking about, okay, how do we talk with the district about, or your school principal leadership about what we can get access to deliver these services, okay? So we have lots of fun things to do. So with that, here we are. You've mapped out your current program efforts. You went back to your school, we hope, and talked with your school to really flush that out. You have identified some grade level learning objectives, and remember in the back of this book you have all the list of objectives that we had provided for you. Hopefully they look more relevant as you had to think about on your own. There was some great stuff, and we have some great people that have been really helping to build that out for you. So it was a great exercise with Masca and Desi to put that list together, and as we're now at this phase, it feels even more robust as a list. And then you are also supposed to go back and look at your online system, learn a little bit more about how it works, just so you're more oriented to it. And many of you, how many of you were on the webinar or watched it afterwards, after it was recorded? Good, okay. Give us feedback on that too to make sure we can make the next webinars even more effective. So what you're going to do now is we want you to share out. Some of you have new group members, may not be aware of the objectives and the work you did. Hopefully you have 2 schools at your table, so we want you to talk about your objectives with each of the schools. We're going to take about 10 to 15 minutes talking about our objectives, and then when we come back, we're going to hear a little bit about some of your experience with that before we get into the exercise that Desi will help us do on implicit bias. So everybody, let's get to work. So how are we doing right now? We're getting in touch with the objectives. So the way today works is we're not really saying, here's what you do in this activity, here's what you do in the next one. We have a flow to go through. Some of you are going to be farther ahead, some of you are going to be catching up. That's fine. Okay, so some of you are still trying to get a handle on the objectives right now. That's okay. You'll have time to start at that point when we come back to our group time. And that's where we're going to spend the rest of the day after we do this activity. But just to give people a sense of where some of you are at, I'd like to hear a few examples of some of the objectives that you're putting forward for your program. And I've got the mic so people can all hear. Okay? So who would like to share? Ruth. Oh, which school you're from?
We're from Whitman-Hanson Regional High School.
Great.
We were looking at personal social skills, and our grade 9 objective was students will gain a deeper understanding of how to develop themselves socially and emotionally in an effort to get the most benefit out of their high school experience.
Outstanding. Whew, that was hot. Good start. Who can top it? No, I mean, let's not make it too competitive. Who has another idea, another example? Which school are you from?
We're from Upper Cape Tech. Students will discuss the importance of having goals and how goals will impact their time in high school, and students will write and record 3 goals.
Whoa, that's outstanding. Awesome. One more? Oh, wait till we get to the branding of your unit titles. That's going to be fun. That's afternoon. We'll get there.
William Thomas from Charlestown High School. Students will be able to advocate for themselves effectively.
Oh, that's great. Excellent. So the ability to advocate. So they come up with their idea and plans, and they're going to have to be able to sell it, explain it, and move forward on. Okay, so that's a good start. We all collectively, families, educators, we have a hard time imagining what's possible in terms of the world of work. We have to work on ourselves to be able to work with them to have high expectations. And we've seen that borne out in our national research. It's not, as someone said, it's not intentional. It's just a lack of engagement. For women back in the 70s, that's what they called banal scripting, where it wasn't that women didn't have the talent to go into STEM, they were just never encouraged. And so there was like this null environment of support. We're seeing that now with students with disabilities. The other problem we have is on the other end. We've got our Naviance, and what does our Naviance help us do? Pinpoint exactly which university they should go to, right? So we have a story from Bill Simons, who was here in the Boston area, where the school counselor said, your son needs to go to this school. Look at how good the scores are in the grades, but he wants to be a chef. Doesn't matter. This is the school that he needs to apply to because he'll get in, right? And so it becomes our goal to try to get all of our students into the top places that they can achieve to, and we forget to take, and I love the advocacy as one of the objectives. How do we build their own advocacy? And the MyCap builds that in. The easiest and most powerful way in which to make sure that occurs and to help both us as educators and the families reorient is to use in the MyCap process when you're doing your curriculum to have an annual student-led parent-teacher conference. Okay? That annual student-led parent-teacher conference is where the student guides, leads, everything they've done, how it all works, what they plan to do with it, and where they plan to go. And again, within our work in looking at this, parents are often shocked because they didn't know, right? They didn't have any idea. As well as educators, they're seeing how they're putting it together. And even though we're doing all these activities, now's the time for the student to lead that process. And again, the self-advocacy comes in. So let's just get a sense of where we're at. You have been starting to talk about objectives. How many are still in the midst of objective discussion? Great, stay there, okay, stay there. And get through that objective piece, because that's when we start to look at your curriculum, in other words, a unit plus these activities and lessons you're gonna do, we want them to tie back to that objective. Very important. What we want you to do right now, just in thinking before you get back to your objectives, or if you're ready to start on your units, is to decide what's the grade level you're thinking of working on. Page 10 of the actual handout that we have for you today does a nice job of talking about different grade level things to think about as you're looking at your objectives to compare to. But we'd like you to find a grade level to focus on, and I want to go around the room and find out what you're thinking about, and then begin to look at lessons that you want to bring in. It may be based on lessons you currently have. You have the Make My Future Work. You have some other resources that you can work with as well. So let's talk about grade levels. How many are, got that? Oh, good. How many are interested in focusing on grade 9? We got some grade 9ers. How many are looking at grade 10? Great. Grade 11? Got a couple? Grade 12? How many are saying grade level? Am I in high school? Is this the right spot? Not sure yet. How many aren't sure yet what grade level they want to choose? You're running out of time. No. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's okay though. So once you get done with your objectives, think about what grade level you want to focus on, not because that's where you're going to end, but we just want to help focus your time today around the skill of identifying lessons. It'll be awesome if we've got examples from the 9th through 12th grade. So I'm excited to hear that we've got a pretty good selection. So go ahead and get going. I'm going to go around the room, check in with each of your groups to see where you're at as you're going, and certainly ask questions as we go along. And don't forget, you're going to be looking at, for a unit, right? Thinking of at least a 3-lesson set, right? Some kind of classroom activity, online, and then another culminating. It could be 4 or 5 activities, but just the idea of those 3 kind of bucket areas. So page 10 you found, but then at the end you also have the list of objectives here too. I'd like to do a quick check-in, see where we're at, see what things we're working on. Here's some great ideas that might be happening. But first, just to check, how many of you are still focusing on objectives and making some good progress on getting the objectives worked out? Excellent, okay. How many of you moved to, you've got your grade level and you've started identifying the activities? You're starting to get it, okay. Remember how we want those activities to go, right? We've got 3 in a broad sense. A group activity, classroom group, something that connects with the online career information system you're using, and then some kind of culminating activity, something that brings it together from which we'll build out the MyCap. And we'll spend in the afternoon after lunch, we'll talk about what kind of artifacts we might bring in, but be thinking as we go through. Who has some exciting thoughts as they're kind of putting this together? Maybe some insights or maybe even questions as they're going through. And I do know who I'm going to call on. But I want to also open it up because I'd like to hear this. We're going to start doing some like lightning rounds to kind of get some buzz on for people to think about some ideas.
We're struggling, like most of you, to try to figure out where we're going to carve out time. And we struggled as a faculty talking about guidance is only able to handle so many students. And part of the problem we mentioned earlier is kids fall through the cracks. And so how does an entire faculty become part of the conversation with our students about college and career readiness? We talked about ideas within our advisory system. Our advisory system was created without giving the STEP curriculum, and so we have a union involved, and if we ask them to do something, we have to get the union to buy in. So we're still struggling. Then all of a sudden, we just kind of thought about physical education and health. We increased our physical education and health requirements to align with what the state wants us to, having 4 years.
Is still your idea?
We have some opportunities in grade 9 and 10 perhaps to use our guidance curriculum into our health and wellness. So we're looking to explore Prince Edward Island. We were told that Prince Edward Island actually does this.
Yes, they do.
So we're going to begin to take a look at what they've already done instead of recreating the wheel and try to give our guidance some more concentrated time to do this.
Yep. And you also mentioned then bringing advisory in more quarterly to be connected to the project, but not have to be the full lead on it, but at least connecting the general educators to what the students are doing in there.
Correct.
So very interesting. So I just want to give it out as a creative strategy, as he mentioned. Well, I don't know where he got that idea, but Prince Edward Island does have a full-on curriculum that goes through their health, and they've worked on that. So there is some examples of some very innovative strategies to get it in. So I thought it would be interesting to hear about. I'm going to show. We're gonna look at your curriculum later, okay. But you've got a full curriculum going and stuff. So we are gonna highlight and show what one district has done, and they put a beautiful thing together, and they're willing to share. You can make the checkout to Jen McGuire, the Save the Jen McGuire Foundation. Courtesy. No, this is the goal of what we're going to be doing here is creating a community of practice where we don't have to reinvent. We can share and learn from each other. And so Jennifer's going to get up and actually give us a quick presentation, either right before lunch or right after, as we keep going. Before lunch, she's going to give a presentation. I'm not in charge. I'm just simply a facilitator. So she'll do that. Any other thoughtful ideas or things you're thinking about? I've been cautioning you to try to figure out where to put it in. I know we jumped the gun, but it did make sense in looking at health. It does help understand, well, what kind of lessons are we going to incorporate that would be meaningful? We are going to spend time together on a webinar talking about how to implement, but you got to have something to sell. right? When we go to the school to say, hey, we've got this college and career advising program, they need to understand how that program is going to leverage their needs. Is it attendance? Is it, we talked about this last time. So these activities are so critical because they're going to look at it and say, oh my gosh, we need to do this. That's what we have to do today. Then we will work with you to support you in figuring out how to make the sale, in other words, how to communicate to the leadership. And we'll even be involved in helping bring the leadership into some of these conversations to help you facilitate that, okay? So we'll get there as we're going along. But I just thought this one around the PE was a really important, innovative strategy that does change kind of the delivery as well and the content. All right, any other thoughtful ideas as we're going? Anyone come up with a fun activity? We're not ready to share yet? We're still working? All right, back to work.
Good morning, I'm Kathy Ledger, the head of guidance at Brockton High School. We do have a curriculum that we've established. It's and we crosswalk the NASCA, ASCA, our literacy objectives. But our issue is that we have 200 students in our school, and the council's got 300 kids apiece. And so after the first meeting, we went back to school and I begged for some money. And we have, I have an ad out for a curriculum committee, and we want to have each major content area in the school, plus our BCTE department and health, involved in creating lessons by grade each year in each content area. And so now our goal is to kind of meet with everyone, give them some of these materials, and each of us would be in charge of working with a content area teacher to develop lessons and units in our classroom. So we're kind of excited about that. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so you've got the Make My Future work. You've also got access to the ILP how-to guides and some other resources. So you might be mapping to figure out what resources you want to come and bring to them. That's awesome. That sounds great. Outstanding. And by the way, you're not a guidance counselor anymore. School counselor.
Okay. Well,
We are. It's now school counselor. So here's the idea. As I'm walking around, I'm seeing some great examples of things. I would like to have you listen a bit to Jennifer McGuire, who's one of our state's leading school counselors. Been at this a long time, been a leader in MASCA, leader in the Reach Higher, doing lots of great stuff. And she said, well, here's what we did. And I said, okay, we should look at this. So I want her to walk through for you what they've done as kind of the full picture. A lot of you are saying, can I see what a full picture looks like? This is an example. It's something you can pull from, something you can add to. She may come back next year with a completely different program. These are things that we're constantly developing. But let's see what it kind of looks like, and we can ask her some questions about what she's done. I've asked her also to spend a few minutes just explaining how they approach this whole process as well, just to give some feedback.
So at Upper Cape Tech, we use MassCIS. We've been using it for, I don't know, close to 15 years at this point. So when we got involved in these workshops, we decided to sort of work backwards and look at our existing curriculum, which was delivered primarily by school counselors. And really our goal is to take what we're doing and spread it across the faculty so that it's not the counselors directing students to do these things in isolation, but rather incorporating what our students are doing across the board. So we had lots of different teachers implementing things in their classes and in their technical programs, but a lot of times we were sort of overlapping or clashing because we weren't in sync. So what we did was we took a look at MassCIS, which I think everyone knows is free, and we looked at a lot of the lessons in there and transferred what we were already doing into lessons you could find in MassCIS. We felt that starting to use the portfolio in there for our what we previously called career plans would make more sense than the unique career plan document that we've been using for, I don't know, about 12 or 13 years. So we put together a curriculum that goes grade by grade and sort of time of the year. We haven't really gotten down to maybe the exact month that it's going to be delivered, but we tried to look at what we were going to cover and when it would happen and who would be delivering it. So I'll just kind of go through this quickly. We'll try not to bore you, but we have a class that all of our 9th graders take called Technical Enrichment. So we thought for our 9th grade students, we've already been delivering a lot of our sort of like pre-college and career advising stuff through a couple of those weeks. So we sort of translated the work that we're doing and started using lessons from Mass CIS. So, for example, there's a resume creator in that, and believe it or not, if you start using the resume creator with the 9th graders, by the time they're ready for a resume, all of the information is in there. So instead of having my colleagues in the back of the room who have been sort of trying to grab this information from the juniors now to try to help them get ready for jobs, our future classes will be able to go into their portfolio in Mass CIS, go into the resume section with their English teachers, press a few buttons, download what they have, and then tailor it for their specific needs from there. So, and it also will save every draft. So we'll start doing that a little bit in 9th grade. We will be working with, we use the Career Scope assessment, which is not part of Mass CIS, but there's a place in Mass CIS to take your results and include them. So instead of using a separate form that we've been using for years where students would record that information, we're going to use the sections that are in Mass CIS. So it doesn't really change what we're delivering, but it's sort of like the documentation of it or the storage so that it's all consistent. And then we go into just some other things, teaching students how to do career research. And if you were to look at our several page document, you'll see that some of the experiences seem to repeat in different grades, but as you can imagine with the different developmental experiences and the knowledge of college and career, when students are doing something in 10th grade and then again in 11th or 12th, they're looking at it from a different lens. So for example, one of the things that our school does is we do, I'm sure a lot of you do it, like a reality fair with our juniors. I know a lot of schools do that with seniors, but we've moved it to our junior year. So we do that in the fall of junior year. So one of the activities that we pulled from Mass CIS is the reality check in Mass CIS for students to do as seniors. So now they have more information. They've had sort of like a big fair experience of doing that, but now let's talk realistically. Now you're telling your counselor that your goal is to go out and work in June full time. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like in terms of what's in your wallet? Are you going to be living with your parents, or are you going to be able to to move out or to get that car you keep talking about? So it just kind of goes through the different activities, and in most of the cases you'll see that if you're familiar with Mass CIS, the headings relate to the different sections in the career plan in Mass CIS. So that way it makes it easy for the instructors that have to learn the system and how to deliver it. So our plan is later this spring, the team of us, the 4 of us, will be presenting this to our staff. And the goal is that the incoming 9th graders next year will be using this from start to finish. We've been doing a lot of this with our 9th and 10th graders, so they're sort of, say like maybe they're doing 50 to 60%, but the incoming classes will be able to go through this seamlessly. So, I don't know, does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. Any questions for Jennifer in terms of what she's talked about? She's going to share it. Let me see. Yes. And then can you repeat the question so it's in the
Sure.
Thank you. You mentioned the Career Scope tool. Do you use any other tools in addition to Mass CIS that you've combined with the Mass CIS curriculum?
Okay, so the question is, do we use any tools other than Mass CIS, which we combine with Mass CIS? So I'm primarily, Career Scope is our big assessment. As a tech school, we have to do a career assessment, and does anybody else use Career Scope? I don't know if there's other folks that use that. It's the only thing that our department spends money on. We don't pay for any other subscriptions, but we spend money on Career Scope because we really think it gives us a lot of information. So we take that information and integrate it. Our students have access to other assessments.
Can you just describe what Career Scope does?
Oh, sure. So Career Scope is it's an online career assessment, but what's unique about it is that it gives you an interest inventory of about 145 tasks. So it might say, filing papers, and you have to say like, dislike, or don't know. And so 145 of those, and then there are 7 timed assessments. So instead of just saying to a student, do you think you are good at math, it actually assesses them in these different areas and then uses the results of the assessments, and they're timed, to identify well, there's actually 9 different aptitudes, but 3 of them most schools don't test for. It's like manual dexterity, so you could just, they're sort of set at the average. But it takes your results from the aptitudes and looks at your interests and gives the students a report where it sort of puts those 2 together. So not only are you interested, but you also have an ability. And what's really nice about it, it's written, I think, on like a 4th grade reading level, so you can use it with, you know, all high school students. I think there is a Spanish version, and you can also change the default settings. So, for example, when I'm working with a 9th grader, I don't want to tell a student, hey, guess what, you could do this job with only finishing 10th grade math, right? Because that might not keep them motivated. But when you're dealing with a senior or even somebody maybe who's just out of high school, you can change those settings so that you can be more realistic about the level of education that they have in a particular area or the skills and what realistically they can do. So it's a wonderful, wonderful program. So that's why we use that, because we can't seem to find anything that does both of those pieces well. So that's like our big thing. But we also, I mean, we have students that take the ASVAB, which is another great assessment. That's the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And that is also, when you go into the assessment section of Mass CIS, it lets you, if you click on the assessment that you used, it lets you put the data in a way that sort of matches, which is very helpful. And then Mass CIS has a number of assessments. The reality check in there is considered an assessment. There's several school and occupation sorts that you can use. So those are pretty much the only ones that we deliver, but I'm sure there's others.
So the only thing I would, just as a add-in, is somewhere in that 9th grade, as they start to explore careers, having an activity that teaches them how to look in depth at different careers.
Well, yeah, so
Because when you say it's time to look at your career goals, I'm trying to figure out where and how those career goals got established.
So because we're a tech school, our students go through an exploratory for the first half of the year. So one of the things they'll do, where it says evaluate occupation options, so they will use Mass CIS to identify 2 careers that are related to the shop they're exploring. So if you're in carpentry for that week, you might look at architect or a cabinet maker. Very different, right? So you could determine that there's different education requirements or maybe different salaries or outlook. And then, so once our students get placed in January, so once that happens, then they're in a technical program. So they would have been exposed to 5 different shops for 1 week in 9th grade, so they would have explored at least 10 different careers. And then in 10th grade, because now they're in a program, they go back and do a similar exercise, but it's within their field.
Right.
So,
and then if you focus just on adding a component where they look at the transferable skills, so they can see where from that particular pathway they can move into other areas, that might help expand them out a little too, just as a thought.
Yep.
Okay. So the goal of this process is to get tidbits of ideas. So it is about having you be willing to share some things you might be doing in your school already that's really exciting. You heard me model with Jennifer that I may throw in some ideas. That's the dialogue. That's the kind of way of thinking how we might expand. It's meant to take what you have and think where we might go with it or how we might align it a little bit more closely with the model we talked about in the workshop 1. But to do that, you've got to show something. You've got to share something out. So we really want to start doing more of that for the rest of the day. Okay? But for now, let's just get a check-in. How many of you are feeling pretty good about your objectives at this point? Pretty good? Got them there? Oh, I've still got some fair to Midlands. My goodness, Norwell, what have you been doing? Too many breaks. Okay, so we'll keep working on the objectives and keep moving through that, and you're getting ideas as you're listening for the different activities. How many are feeling like you're at the beginning point of starting to really plow through the different activities you might be looking at for your grade level? A few? Okay. How many of you like, you know what, I'm so done with activities, it's all finished. Mine's even better than Jennifer's. I don't know why you had her come up. No, we're not there yet? Okay, good. So we're in the middle there. That's where you need to be. This is good. So we're going to keep going. Why don't you take about another 10 minutes. Then we're going to break for a 1-hour lunch. And then you're going to come back. And then we'll get started with it. We'll see where we're at, and we'll do more report outs when you get back, okay? And then from there, we'll decide, do we want more time on activities, or do we want to go into MyCap? Looks like we got a couple teams that are scragglers. We'll all stare at them as they walk in. No, we got a couple teams coming in, but let's kind of get ready to think about what you want to share out. And we're going to go table to table and have everybody give us something. We'll actually do it by grade level. It'd be nice. We'll start at 9th and move all the way up to 12th. Okay? Where's my 9th grade group? Who's working on 9th grade right now? Nobody's going to raise their hand because they don't want to go first. Oh, there's one. Okay, we got some of that. I'll start in the back and we'll move forward. Want to hear something exciting that your school is doing?
So the most exciting thing I've done hasn't been for the 9th grade yet, but it's actually been to have stolen Jennifer's framework and to start to create my own. We have 3 guidance counselors and we cover different grades. So what we're doing now is really like, what have we already done? Like ticked off, we're like, yep, we've covered this. But also taking a page from Jennifer's book, since I can't take Jennifer home with me, is working smarter and not harder. And really, we use the Naviance platform, and there are certain benchmarks that we have to do anyways. So what are some other things that we can access there to tick off those benchmarks, so we're not trying to recreate the wheel every single time.
Great. So for you, it's been exciting because you've come up with a plan now to really get this organized. Yep. Excellent. All right. Gonna come over here.
Teresa Mascarenas, Brockton High School, and my colleagues here can add in. I would say 2 years ago, we started using the MIFA pathways. Actually, we've used it for many years, but 2 years ago, we had a 9th grade 21st century computer class where the MIFA pathways is actually introduced in that classroom. It's an obligatory class for 9th graders. So that opens up lots of possibilities for us as to how we can carry it further. But they are introduced in the 9th grade.
Great, great.
So this is
Please.
Well, yes, this is a mandatory class. We're looking for computer literacy for the students, but so they are introduced to the class, they register, and they learn how to use the tools. So they are familiar with the tools, so the time that it's going to be implemented in other subjects or in other activities, they are already familiar with it.
That's outstanding. Great. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Excellent. So looking at using the computer class as a way of building their competency for using the system, when you're then bringing in other curriculum to help them learn how and what they want to be doing with it. That's outstanding. Yes, question?
I think this was brought up when we met a couple months ago, but I would really be interested if people could share when they access students. If you have it built into your schedule, if there's certain classes, we're sitting with a tech school that is designed entirely different than us. But really curious, because I know for us that is a huge roadblock, is having the time to get into the classroom. So any feedback for when it is working for people would be greatly appreciated by me.
Excellent. Coming back over here.
At Brockton High School, we find ourselves really fortunate. We're going into the actual classrooms and presenting the workshops. So every major content area, the 4 major content areas, those are the classrooms we go into. Kathy Ledger, who's the department head, she will sit down with the department heads and plan accordingly throughout the year what would be a good time for us to go into the classrooms and hit the various grades with the various workshops that we present.
But that's still you delivering all the services, or are we getting content teachers to participate?
We are delivering, but now,
English teachers do.
yes, this past year, for example, the English department picked up the PSAT. We used to do that.
Okay.
They picked up the PSAT presentation.
Yeah, but we have other, not as involved as we would like for my cup. We just explained that we are putting that together.
So you're starting to move towards that.
We do have a curriculum that we use per grade with activities.
Okay.
That is aligned with the ASCA model and everything.
Okay.
But what we also do is that different subjects, since we started presenting, I'm sorry. Since we started first presenting 2 different departments, through different classes,
Mhm.
teachers really got involved.
Good.
Because when we were presenting, they started being active participants of the presentation. And
Awesome.
say, oh, yeah, by the way, and they
Mhm.
started co-presenting with us. It was really interesting. So they got really interested and they started picking up some pieces. So they actually volunteered to do certain things, like, for example, through the social science department, there is the students get some type of workshops to get organized and how to be successful
Great.
in English, etc., etc. But now, as Ms. Ledger explained, we're going to go deeper with that and analyze, what else they can do.
That's outstanding. So building capacity among your teachers to understand the relevance and meaningfulness of it. It started somehow with them letting you in, but you made sure they were physically there as the process is going. As they're getting more included, we're now looking for ways for them to take over some of the pieces. That's excellent. And that's what we would say building our capacity, right? It takes time. That's excellent. Anyone on this side of the table want to share while I'm here? Any ideas? Name and school?
My name is Dan Wright. I'm from Dartmouth High School. So we use Naviance as a platform, and really ninth grade is what we really focused on. We do the personality type in ninth grade. And before this year, we had a class called Freshman Seminar, which all freshmen were required to take. And that's how we went into the classroom to get that. Freshman Seminar is now eliminated, so now we have to find new ways to get into the classroom. So now we are looking at going into the content areas into the classroom.
Okay.
And this year we actually went in for the PSATs. All sophomores and all juniors take the PSATs at our school. So we went into English 10 classes to present the PSAT lesson, and then all English 11 classes for the PSAT lesson.
Great, great. Remember the caution around personality versus skills when you're doing those early assessments. Maybe think about expanding out as a big piece. I'm standing right here in the vortex of the internet crisis.
Since they already spoke.
Since they spoke?
We're next.
You're next?
I'm next. I'm next. Hi, my name is Mary Carter. I work at South Shore Charter in Norwell. And not to take anyone's thunder, but we're very similar to what you were saying earlier about your ninth grade program. I typically do a lot with juniors and seniors who are finally starting to develop ninth grade. This is our second year of having a counselor that does grade 9 and 10, so we're really looking forward to taking these lessons and ideas and trying to beef up that program.
What's your most exciting lesson right now?
For ninth graders?
Yeah.
Or anyone?
Any of them, either of them.
The most exciting lesson we've ever done is, it's really goofy, but that GPA game, my students love that because they don't really think about it. You have them line up with the numbers and you read off the things and have them move around. And it's very visual, it's very get up and move around. And I think everything's just a calculated thing for them. We were thinking, could you even expand that and have them actually calculate their GPA by hand? Which I really like that, but.
That's great. So that's fun. Yeah, my daughter hates that. Her math teacher, is it her math or biology? I think it's her biology. They have to calculate their own grades and maintain their own GPA throughout the class. Oh boy. What's that?
I love it.
You love that? I know. It really makes them understand how this whole thing works. I love it too. But it is interesting. I'm turning around. You got something?
Sure. Hugh Galligan, Norwood High School. One thing we are excited about is planning a career education week, 9 to 12. So looking at that as kind of a launching point for our career development education. Being able to have all teachers plan some integrate career education into wherever they are at in the curriculum at that point in time.
Great.
And capping it off with some type of career fair.
Awesome. Great. And remind me, we're going to talk about career fairs today when we get to employer engagement and things like that. You guys good? Awesome. All right. I'm just going to walk randomly around. Well, maybe not so random. Anything at this table we want to share?
Sure. So I'm John Garofalo at Silver Lake. We are currently going through a NEASC visit, and there's this component called Vision of the Graduate. So those of you that haven't gone through the new standards, this really is going to tie in well, and we're going to, I don't want to say piggyback, but as we talk about building capacity and getting buy-in, this can't just be another thing. This has to be integrated. This is career and college readiness standards. We wanted to equivocate to the same importance as MCAS and things like that because it is as vital. So we really plan to expand upon that and work on some of the subgroups we already have to build capacity.
Wow. That sounds great. So we need to look at the NEASC and see. It'd be great to connect that more effectively. Other comments or other?
We have student-led parent-teacher conferences twice a year.
Great.
Talking about how to incorporate, instead of just focusing on the report card and just the comments that are in front of them, having kids plan using more of what's on their MyCap and thinking beyond just that particular report card as they're planning their agenda.
Awesome. That's great. More? No? Yeah? Me? No? I can stand here. Or okay? All right. Okay. All right. In which school, Rebecca?
Hi, I'm Rebecca, and I'm at the John D. O'Brien School in Boston. The guidance team went into 11th grade English classes recently and did the super match function on Naviance, which is just a college match function. But through that activity, we talked about like reach, safety, fit schools, how to build a college list, how to look at admissions criteria, students and look at their own GPA versus schools, and also acceptance rates, which is a really big piece that is not often thought about because it's not in a student's profile, but it plays a big role. So that was a really great activity.
Great. Excellent. Do you guys have some things ready?
We do.
Awesome. Oh, Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Brand from Marshfield. We're actually looking at our 9th grade and using our current advisory structure to start to deliver 4 lessons throughout the year that are geared more towards career exploration and getting to know themselves and their skills. So we started sort of brainstorming lessons within our advisory curriculum that we were going to hopefully train our staff to deliver the lessons, because we have actually the advisor stays with the students for all 4 years.
Awesome.
So we would really want to train our 9th grade advisors for the incoming 9th grade class to deliver these lessons and make them a meaningful experience for all the students. So we're talking about getting to know you lesson that would then lead into using one of the lessons from the Making My Future with the soundtrack of my life, which we thought might help them to start thinking about themselves in a creative way that they might actually buy into. That's also the key, is getting them to actually want to do it. And then academics-wise, having them work on a course elective plan for the 4 years, and then finally having that lead into career education and awareness, just so that they can start thinking about what careers might align with their academic plan. So
that's outstanding.
and sort of working into that lesson how to find the career information so they can do some of that on their own as well.
It's awesome. That's a great plan. Excellent. Excellent. No one's going to look at me?
I'll talk.
Oh, good.
Straight up toddler behavior.
How about that? No,
Hi, I'm Cassandra Prislemski. I'm from New Heights Charter School. I teach a course called Foundations of Leadership, and in that course they just finished a project which was amazing at our school, that they came up with a career that they want to accomplish, and then talked about the pathway that it takes to get to that career, starting at the high school level and what they have to do now, what they have to accomplish in college as well, and where they want to go. And then what was cool is we put on a college fair, a college and career fair, that the 9th grade actually went and visited all the colleges and careers. So then they both got to experience the college and career curriculum.
Great.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Gail Berman Martin. I'm the co-director of the 5 career academies at Atlantis Charter School, and we're very fortunate because we have 5 specific academies where our students have chosen a pathway by the time they're in the end of their 10th grade. So 7th and 8th grade is career awareness. 9th and 10th is more exploration. We're doing a career fair this next week. And by the time they get into their 11th and 12th grade, they're into immersion, and so they do job shadowing as well as an internship.
Great, great. So you got the whole thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have STEM, we have teacher development, arts and culture, business and entrepreneurship, and also medical and medtech.
Medical technology is great. Excellent. Thank you. And remember also with those that we want to think of those pathways as their on-ramps that can lead to multiple places. So really looking at the transferable skills and helping them have activities where they can see multiple career opportunities from each of those really helps them engage with that, with the current pathway, but also see a future as they go through. All right, I know you can hear that sound. It's me behind you. What do you guys have? Who's ready? All right.
Sure. We have a similar situation as the last person that spoke. We have grades 7 through 12. In grades 7 and 8, we have students go through a lot of exploratory programs in the culinary arts and arts and communications, business, and STEM-related subject areas. They're able to explore whether it be a term or a semester-long course. And then leading into the high school experience, we have Naviance, where all students get registered in Naviance in 7th grade, where the school counselors work with all the students to navigate a little bit through that, where we've been talking about how do we get that and expand it throughout the entire school so everybody has a piece of that and owns it during our homeroom period.
Okay.
In the morning, we have a 10-minute homeroom, and really kind of taking that and infusing it throughout the entire the entire school through all the
Great.
the faculty.
So focusing on helping to get more engagement from the educators to participate more fully in the activities?
Yes.
Great, awesome. Anything else at this table?
We're from Boston Green Academy, and we're a 6 through 12 school in Boston, and we are using Naviance in the 8th grade. We're administering the interest profile assessment and the career cluster to 8th grade students. We have a career and technical education pathway in environmental science. Our hope is to use that data to identify students who are interested in environmental science and sort of target them to be part of the CTE pathway. We also have a lot of partners in our school, and we're looking at how to leverage our partners a little bit more effectively. So, for example, we have a partnership with Big Brother, Big Sister, and they provide mentors for our students. And looking at some of the data from those assessments to identify mentors that are employed in a career that our students are interested in.
Great. So just as a suggestion, rather than the interests to see if they go in, play games. What are some kind of aptitude-ish activities related to environmental science, nature, different things that as they're playing it and engaging in it, it tells them something about what they might be interested in that way versus a traditional assessment. It actually makes it more fun and engaging. It can also help, we can do other kinds of things with it as well. But really thinking about more interactive dynamics, especially in that middle school, to really get their imagination that, wow, this is an exciting area and field that I want to get into. So we're building competency and capacity.
I'm Liz Talbot. I'm from Community Academy of Science and Health in Boston, and I think our group just really worked on some things that we're going to specifically implement with 11th graders this spring in our junior seminars. But I think one of the things was, not reinventing the wheel. We've all been doing lots of different things, in terms of college and career advising for, many years. And really pulling on our partners and other resources to, differentiate and really, put together all of this in this framework.
Don't let her laugh at you.
And how to utilize Naviance with that as well.
Perfect, awesome. Anything from Charleston?
Hi, we are from Charlestown High School. It's Boston Public School, grades 9 through 12. And we decided to focus on our 12th grade, and we do have advisory, but we also do have a rotating kind of D block. It only happens 3 times a week, but we do, as counselors, we go in and do a kind of college-going class that focuses on applications as well as, workforce-related activities as well. But for the first time this upcoming semester, now we just started yesterday, but we did loop into teachers to pair with us too, and our conversation here, we are talking about kind of really growing our college culture through our teachers, because we can't always do it all as counselors, and it's not effective. So really utilizing the resources we have as teachers in our school.
Great, awesome. All right, we got, I think, 2 more tables left. Here we come. Ask not for whom the bell tolls. The bell tolls for Brighton. Here you go.
So we worked on a lot of things. The one piece that we're really kind of keying in on is the pieces, the social, emotional pieces that some of this curriculum is missing, that we feel at Brighton High School especially, we need to embed so that students then can see themselves in the college and career going process. So we too have to use and implement Naviance, but we want to add the other pieces like how do you recognize when there's a problem and how to problem solve through that? Communication skills. What is this high school thing? And maybe like this BHS Guide to Surviving High School that talks about you know, the MCAS, study habits, GPA, all those things that kids are expected to do, and those pieces of time management. So there's some lessons definitely in the Making My Future Work that we're pulling from, but we're being really mindful of our students and what we feel they need to kind of fill in the gap so that they can approach high school in a more positive way.
Awesome. Thank you. That was great. Got something? He's got something? Bill's ready?
My name is Bill Rollinson, and I'm from the Edward M. Kennedy Academy for Health Careers. We are one of Boston's high schools. We're an in-district charter school, Horace Mann charter. Much like VGA, we're seeing Naviance, and in Boston as a district, Naviance is kind of like our directive from the district to use. And there's certain benchmarks that we have to accomplish for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And again, similar to BGA, we have a number of partners that we already work with in our school that touch on different aspects of that. And it's trying to find where the crossover is with what we have to accomplish with 9 to 12 and what they offer. A challenge with that, it sounds great, we have tons of partners, but it's also trying to convince the partners to do it when we want them to do it, all right? And you know, to kind of do it because they have a responsibility, they have funding streams and all that, but it's to convince them to do it in the sequence we want and what we want them to cover. So that's going to be the big finesse as we move forward with this.
Great. And another option, Bill, on that too, I don't know who the partners are, but I have seen schools where the partners are invited in to help design the curriculum, and that it helps to create that sense of alignment, and it helps them recognize the timing. But it also creates an opportunity where they get invested, and then they may bring in new resources to support as well. I went to that. I think this is it. I think you're it.
Sorry, we're from Whitman Hanson. So my name is Brian. One of the things that we have talked a lot about, and it kind of came up in the last time that we met, is building in our financial literacy curriculum to become a requirement for our junior class. And so it's something that we're working on so that the students can really get some of that financial knowledge. They do a career research project where they'll actually understand the careers they might want to get into, what's required to go down that path, how much money they might make, and then it's connected to another project where they do a roommate budgeting project, and in there they learn the value of certain expenses that we have in life. So when we talk about college and career readiness, it's the idea is that we want to make sure that they feel financially literate, hence the course, to be able to move forward and feel comfortable but also confident that they won't get lost when they get out in the real world.
And can you tell us what your role is in the school?
Yeah, so I am a business teacher as well as the internship coordinator for our seniors.
And what drew you into this conversation? How did career development and business for you connect?
For me,
yeah.
I mean, a lot of it being, I always tell my students that I got into business because business relates to everything. So for me, business, I've been in the industry before, but coming back into you know, education, students ask why I did that and the value of taking a business class, and I feel like the value of a business class is that even your own personal finances, you can run your house like a business, and I feel like that's important to know how to do that as well.
Great, thank you. All right. So thanks everyone for sharing. So you see we're all in very different places. In some cases, we're all coming towards the same goal. Some are using this time really to figure out a plan. Some have the plan and have already had a plan and they're just kind of putting it into the new system. Some are trying out brand new curricula and ideas. And that's awesome. That's great that we're all kind of using this in the way that is relevant for your own school, your own district. Questions then. What would be helpful, or what are some of the challenges that you're experiencing that we can try to think about in problem solving? So the first part is, how can we help take what we're learning and really help you now? What's missing in this process? What additional information would help? What would get you to that next level? And just any comments and questions on that. So it's kind of a just a check-in, as I see my slide went out. It's a check-in to see where you are right now and how we can help facilitate. I'm just going to put the thing back on and then we'll want to hear questions or ideas. Okay, so who has some idea? What would be helpful? What are some of the challenges that you would like some feedback on, or some things to think about as we're kind of getting at this phase, as it's coming together?
About how to embed this work into like your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard we have an advisory model that we call CREW. And I heard a couple people say that they push into advisories and such. The issue that, one of the issues that I'm currently facing is getting teachers to buy into the idea of advisory or CREW. It's an extra prep, it's the time of day is always up for debate of when it happens. And, you know, the support, the non-teaching staff really uses that period to do this type of work. Our college reps, our partners come to visit, our community meetings. So the folks that are not teaching the day-to-day crew actually see it very valuable, while it may seem like a burden to other teachers. So I think that I would like to know how schools got teachers to buy into this extra block of time.
Great. Excellent question.
It is.
Here,
Sorry, I am a teacher too. It's the last period of the day, and we put it there to support our dual enrollment, to support our athletics, to support our internships through our pathway work. It's a tough part of the day to have this period, but we did it to meet all these other needs. Last year we had a 5th period, and teachers felt as though it was like an interruption to their content flow.
Okay.
So we played around with the time, even thinking about having a first period, but I'm against first period because I know that kids are gonna just skip it. So we played around with it.
All right.
It's every day.
Every day. Whew. That's a lot. How long? 43 minutes.
43 minutes.
Every day. You're not just doing career development in that period.
No,
Though
we're
it's
not.
doing multiple things, but it is an advisory time. So the question is, how do we get buy-in? The bigger question is, how do we get those advisory periods to buy into career development as an important activity to embed within that process? Any ideas? Any thoughts of people who've been able to accomplish that? Made it happen?
I think having a ready-made curriculum that people are comfortable deploying without needing lots of trainings is definitely helpful. At English High School, we have 5 exploratories, middle of the day, 10:30, and these are very new teachers. So I think they're actually very much okay with opening their classroom up to us and having us take over and run things. We're always talking about college and career in the technical pathways. So it's just a perfect fit for us. But I'm excited to hear that the questions you guys are asking are the questions that I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, geez, I wish I knew this stuff. They all know this. I don't want to out myself as not being ready. But we're in the same boat as all y'all, and little by little, just finding the right way to reach the cohort and capturing them all at once was just one of the strategies we came up with that I think is really going to help us.
So really interesting, the combination. So as you're describing, the advisory is giving you access as the school counselor to come in and do it, and needing to move towards their taking ownership and being able to do it themselves.
That's right. And
right?
I think one of the ideas with this model is that we will, so our teachers, they teach 9 through 12. During the exploratory, myself and the guidance counselors come in and sort of lay that threshold experience out for them. So in a sense, we're training the teachers because the next iterations when we do 11, 10, 11, and 12, it's going to start to be owned by those teachers.
Okay, great.
They don't know that yet.
Yeah, they don't know that yet. That's the secret. We'll keep it here. So what's interesting then is again the idea that you're modeling, you're showing value, they're getting used to it, they're seeing it. One of the more interesting, you were mentioning the idea of prep, and I know there's a lot of unions that'll say, fine, you can do advisories, but no prep. That one of the things we found, this one creative school counselor, I may have talked about it in the first session, but he basically would videotape, just like, and you can do it if you have Zoom, Skype, whatever you have to record themselves, introducing the lesson for that day. Teacher walks in the class, puts it on for the class, and together they learn. Because it's not complicated. And it could be using the online system, it could be introducing the activity they're going to do, but basically he found that the teachers who were first saying, I don't know, once they did it, they found it useful, found it meaningful, that once they got through that first semester, they started getting it. It took time, but they started getting it. So it was the just-in-time information as opposed to a full prep. So I think there's a lot of the things we're doing which is about gaining the buy-in, and it's about helping them see the connection that's going on. I'm excited we have so many teachers that are here because they see that connection. Now how can we grow that? It becomes a big piece. Is there other feedback to this important issue? Other ideas that people want to have on it? Yeah, I'm going to step behind you here.
I was just wondering, because I've struggled with advisory in different schools that I've been at, and the question that I'm wondering is it a programmatic issue at your school, or is it a content issue? So in other words, do the teachers have the problem with where the block is and the idea of the block every day? Or like you mentioned, it interrupts their flow, or is it the idea of delivering the content? Because where we are right now with the creation of a new requirement for financial literacy and pushing this material in there, and then the idea that our counselors go into social studies, history, and English classrooms rather than math and science classrooms, we were having kind of the same conversation here about how do we get teachers, or how do we approach that with teachers to take a unit that they have and show them how it connects, show them the bridge to this material so that they can adjust that unit of instruction to meet these requirements or to get this type of information across to students. So
Right.
I'm wondering if it's the idea of that block of time, because if a good indicator is if it really matters where it is during the day, because then it becomes more of an inconvenience, or do they really understand the value of this type of material and this content to students? And if you can sell the latter, then the former is just tinkering around with times.
It's great. Thank you, that's great. And I think that is the big key. It has to be valuable. And it may be that this is also why we talk about starting small, not going whole school for some of these when we're thinking about career development. How do we build in, gain the credibility, get the choir who wants to buy in to pilot some of this, get the feedback. We'll talk about that in workshop 3, the idea of building a storyline about the impact of students, the experience they're having, how are parents experiencing it, how are those teachers experiencing it. So the rest of the school realizes this is relevant and meaningful, and now how do we begin moving forward in a larger scale. But giving ourselves permission to learn how to learn has to be a big part of this. And I'm excited to hear, Xavier, what you were saying, that as you start to hear each other, you start to realize we're actually quite, in many ways, in the same place. We've got some that are ahead of us in some areas. We've got some that are focusing on key issues that address everything we're addressing. And this is why we want a community of practice. We want to be able to share and think about these pieces. One more comment before we get back to work. No, not if you're going to put it that way. Okay, all right, we're going to come back and talk some more in a minute, but this is the next phase of our discussion. You're starting to get an idea. Everyone is talking, you're moving. It's not all going to happen today, right? You're getting the structure of how to make this work. What we want to do is focus our conversation in a couple of ways for the rest of the afternoon. The first is to think about the MyCap. Okay, remember the College and Career Advising is the program of lessons you're creating for educators to facilitate. The MyCap is the student's experience with this process. It's their portfolio. It's their connection to the learning and the meaning and building their own goals and things like that. So what we want to focus on in this next phase in your groups is to think about the MyCap. So as you've thought about some of these lessons, the question becomes, what is the product? What's the evidence base, if you will? What is the student able to produce out of these activities, out of these lessons, that could then be stored within this online portfolio? Okay? Now remember, we had those learning objectives to say, here's what we want them to learn how to do. You can see where we're going. How does this artifact then help us understand whether they have achieved those competencies we wanted them to get? So this focus is now on what is that artifact and what might it look like. This is going to be one of those kind of quick discussions, and then we're reporting out. We want to hear ideas about what people are coming up with, because some of you may have some very innovative practices already you're using that we want to hear about, and some may have questions and how might I do this, and we have a whole room here to help us think through it, okay? So let's start with 15 minutes, and then we'll check in. Okay. Whew. Lots of good discussions. So we're talking about MyCap, we're talking about the portfolio, we're talking about what is the documentation you're going to put into that portfolio that helps us demonstrate whether or not students have reached the objectives that we're hoping they reach, okay? Who's got some fun ideas?
So all our seniors have to do an internship at the end of their year, at the last quarter of their senior year. So my thought was they have to do a reflective essay anyway. So the reflective essay could be their reflection piece, and that could be uploaded. There are a lot of guiding questions. I stress it is not a research paper. You don't have to do, you don't have to find quotes or anything, but it's really about the content and what you've learned from the experience. And so that's kind of the culmination, because to get the internship, of course, you have to get in, you have to have a resume, you have to talk to someone, you have to solidify it. So you go through all those steps that you've worked on from grades 9 through 12 to get to that point.
Wow, outstanding. So let's, can I add to that, Mary? Sure. So let's blast that out a bit. So when they start off as freshmen, we're trying to help them think about who they are and what their talent is. That could be a nice reflection statement. What have you learned about yourself, right? And then we're also trying to get them to think about where this talent that's emerging, where it might fit in the world of work. That's a nice reflection statement. And then that internship, where did it come from, right? That internship should be based and aligned to where I'm thinking I might want to go. It's helping me gather some more information about myself. It's helping me gather information about the career. It's helping me build job skills. All of those things, right? So the reflection that you're talking about in the senior year is huge, because it should be the steps of saying, here's why I entered, here's what I got out of it. And then the last part is, and where am I going? And so we can use that senior reflection statement to be that culminating moment where they're explaining how they're about to enter their post-secondary life, whether that's a 2-year degree, 4-year degree, whether that's military, whether it's going directly into the world of work. But they can reflect on that, and they can explain how it's all tied together. That, by the way, is a very powerful individual that's leaving your school when they have that full awareness and that connection. So you're building these reflective statements annually in the portfolio. It's kind of like that becomes your culmination, right, each year, to say how far are we progressing as we become, quote, college and career ready, okay? So great concept of the idea of using reflection. We can just expand that out and build it as a developmental sequence. Great, excellent. Who else has a portfolio idea?
Hi, Kristen from Marshfield. We're talking still about our 9th graders, and so we're looking at how we can use Naviance more with the 9th graders and gathering some artifacts in there. So we're looking at the Strengths Explorer and incorporate that into our first Getting to Know You lesson, and then potentially the Career Explorer tool for talking about careers later on down the road in 9th grade. So they're already built into Naviance, so we can use those.
Great. So correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is the nice thing about these online systems is a lot of times when you're doing activities, it gets stored in the e-portfolio for you. So it's not like you have to create something new. You just have to make sure you're using those activities. Remember they're there, because that's how you can check to make sure that the full program is being implemented, is to see whether or not all your students have those elements there, right? And then also the rationale for why it's there. How is it supporting their development as we go forward? So yes, a lot of stuff is going to be happening, and the more you learn about the system, the more you'll learn about the kinds of things that will naturally be put into that system. It'll happen also when they start to look at different post-secondary options. Some of the preferred ones will often be stored, okay? As you start looking at different career preference areas and goals, those will be stored. So it's really nice to have that as a part of the system. Others? MyCap ideas? No video ideas? Performance? Somebody was saying that they have a med tech program. Isn't there technology involved in that? Isn't there a way that youth could videotape themselves using the technology that industry is saying they need youth to have the skills to be able to use? How cool would that be? Because you can send that to the employer as part of the resume to say, oh, and here's part of my portfolio demonstrating me using those skills. One of the things that we've also been talking about is the idea that I think we may have talked about this in the first session, but when you're doing some of the activities, we talked about a reflection statement, they could also do a oral statement, right? They could actually get up and do a presentation, use the PowerPoint. We talked about student-led parent-teacher conferences. Can't we record that? Practicing, learning how to present themselves, and starting to showcase some of the skill sets that might be in there as well. So think in those ways. The other fun thing to do, especially we have some that are working in middle school, right? So when they start looking at their talent, and then you always have them do something fun, like to go to a magazine and find examples of all that talent, and they build a poster, take a picture of the poster, put it in. Because we can now take a PDF and store it into that online system, right? So think about those art projects. Think about those projects that they're doing, the science projects, the science fairs. The science fairs are where they're demonstrating their skills, and have them do something, either pictures and video, PowerPoints. That should be going in as showing their talent development as it's going on. Where's my future farmer, Futures of America? See, I'm a 4-H'er, so I get messed up, don't I? See, it's awful. We have a problem between FFA and 4-H. But at any rate, you got stuff, right? What's going on in FFA that if we talked with the leaders in the community, we could have some additional things brought into that portfolio?
FFA provides over lots of litany of career development events, so kids will compete at states, competitions amongst other schools, 27 programs, and FFA chapters all over the state. Then they'll compete in the fall nationally against the 50 states. So tons of leadership competitions, state competitions, content competitions, and those are all items that students can further their leadership abilities and can be put into their MyCap portfolio throughout their 4 years.
Awesome. Yeah. So as we think about some of those activities in leadership, again, we start brainstorming how we might capture that and store it, because once it's in the portfolio, it won't be lost. That's the beauty of it. And then we can have additional reflections on who they are, how they're developing, how they're emerging, because they have their own evidence to support on that. Anything you wanted to add on that? You're good?
I was just going to mention the Making My Future Works booklet, because I know when we gave it out at Workshop 1, you know, with all the lessons in that, lots of activities in there, lots of things to look at. And what from there will you then upload into MyCap? So there's so many places to go for.
That's right.
Yes, it's important to record things and reflections here and there. But you know, what we plan here is the school is that the students at the end of the year, at the end of the semester, or at the end of the year, like we were thinking at the beginning, will have another type of reflection, looking at all these reflections, looking at what you have learned through the year.
Yes.
You know, where are you now? So you
That's
can
right.
elaborate and have an open response of them, or some guiding questions. But it's extremely important they can see where they were and where they are now.
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly right. And this is also why we talk about self-exploration skills and that whole area happening every year. Because let's take a student who didn't think they could do school, right? We talked about Mia last couple months ago, where she wasn't doing anything, and then got excited about the biotech, and then all of a sudden started taking the courses and realizing she had talent. We want her thinking every year, what can I be? Because nurse wasn't her first start, but she evolved into that because as her capacity grew, her reflection of what I can do grows. And it's that development that we want to capture in this portfolio. So exactly, reflecting on what we've learned, reflecting on where we're going. It's really powerful way of building a very strong sense of identity about who I am and what I'm about, which is what they're going to need when they make that transition from high school. So, and they need the feedback from us, encouraging them and believing in them as well on that. Absolutely.
So for students who complete an internship or a job, they can complete a Massachusetts work-based learning plan with their supervisor that measures goal setting, basically, for professional skills at the beginning of the internship and at the end. So they can reflect with their supervisor about their progress on those skills and upload that to their portfolio. And it's also helpful, in theory, they would, at the top of the plan, write a job description with the supervisor, so hopefully they can copy and paste that right into their resume.
That is outstanding. Thank you. That is an amazing resource. I talk about this all over the country, that what they've created for you in DESE, and if Shayla were here, she'd be all excited because she's the one who helped created that, but you have a form that the employer is going to fill out that testifies to the skills and the developmental trajectory of the student who is on the internship. We take that, PDF it, stick it in the portfolio, and the students have a very powerful document saying, look at what I've done. It's amazing. It's great. So this is ready to go. The problem is no one knows where to put it. Right? You have it fill it out, and it's like, all right, now what do? We put it in, we attach it to the portfolio. Okay? We make that part of the process. Other things on that. Okay, don't forget that the final culminating portfolio activity, seniors, maybe start at the end of the junior year, seniors, have them take everything they've learned, the big artifacts, whatever they want to take out of it, and move it to a LinkedIn. Okay, move it to LinkedIn. 2 reasons you want that. 1, we're training them to have now a brand and an outer-facing sense of identity, A. B, now you can track them. Once they built it, they've got their own LinkedIn account, now we can say hello to them. Okay, so some pretty cool things that social media can do in supporting us connecting, but also helping them be prepared for that next level. So do think about that, because what is the LinkedIn? It's a portfolio. And they're taking the best of what they've learned and who they are, and they're putting an outward-facing sense of identity, okay? Which is a nice thing. All right, are we good with that? We're okay? Look at that, part 3. Okay, the first part of what we want to do now is just take 5 minutes to go through and see how far you've gotten in hitting all of the different domains, right? So Jennifer, we thank you. She did an awesome job presenting a whole list of activities. She and I talked about this at lunch because we were in line together. It was a nice lunch. Is that we need to go back now and see how it aligns with the different domains, see what we might have missed. Not because that's what we're sending to our teachers, but it's helping us know, do we have a comprehensive college and career advising program? That's what we're trying to do. When it's time for us to go to the teachers, we may put it in different formats and things to get teachers involved. But this is a chance for you to look through and say, have we hit on all those different cylinders? So I believe you have a program analysis tool in the participant guide. Try page 13. All right, so it's on page 13 here. What this is doing, here's the point of this activity. We want you to take a look at activities and see that in fact, one single activity may cut across a number of domains. Okay? This is not about coming up with 20 activities that are each discrete. It's about having activities that cover the social emotional, it's career exploration. It's also planning. It may cut across all of those. And so we laid these out to start having you think through whether or not this is happening. So within this little 5 to 10-minute activity, we want you to just look through what you've done so far and see and talk whether or not you're hitting, how many of these you think you're hitting. This is not meant to be a long conversation, more of a, does it look like we're hitting? You got that? It's this page. It's page 13 in the guide we gave you today. and it says CCA Program Analysis Tool. So we're just pausing as kind of a check-in to see how we're doing across those different domains, okay? And then we're just going to report out real quick whether you think you're hitting some, which ones might be harder to hit, things like that. How many of you are hitting at least all five of those areas in the social domain? Anybody? Oh, I see. Oh, get that hand up. That's a good one. A couple of you? Okay, how many are hitting 4? Feel like we've hit 4 of those areas? 3? Oh, 4. We might have 4. We're counting?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. 3. How many are hitting 3? Okay, good. And then what about career development education, right? That's our traditional area. How many are hitting all 3 of those areas in your work, in the activity so far, okay? Could be a strength because that's kind of where we started, right? And now we're expanding out. The academic, oh, we spelled college wrong. That's awesome. Maybe it needs 3 L's. Why not? We had a spare L sitting around and we threw it in.
One of them is silent.
Look, it's getting long today. We have to be careful. We got to stay on target. So academic, college, and career planning. How many nailed that one? Did people get into that one? Got one? Couple? Okay. Remember that the 4-year academic plan should be that freshman year, no later than. Even better if we're working with middle school to have them entering. And then they're going to redo that 4-year plan every year. So it's not a done plan, it's formed and we're moving forward. If you're good at what you do, meaning everyone's bought in and going, there's going to be very few fall change in programs because the youth are the ones driving the process. This is what we're hearing. So you really want to think about that 4-year plan as a key piece. And then, of course, college and career plans being part of that other challenge. What are my post-secondary goals? Okay, we're good on that? Any reflections or thoughts or questions? Important to make sure we're on target with those areas so we're comprehensive. This is our last activity before we talk about getting ready for next workshop, okay? So this is it. I know this has been a lot of work today, and it's been great work to watch, by the way. Been working really hard on this. This last part is expanding now. It's trying to help us think about ways in which we're engaging families. How are we engaging our employers, community organizations, higher ed partners? Who are those demographic groups? Our ELL, special ed. Perhaps we've got a significant low income, our METCO students. What are the areas that we're feeling we need to be hitting? And how are we doing it? And how is this process expanding out to do that? That's what this section is on. And we can do it together as a group. We can hear some of the things you're already doing, if you would like. But that means people are going to have to raise their hand and grab the mic. And we'll do a quick lightning round. Does that sound good? So who's engaging families right now? I see a hand up over here. We got a couple. Let's start in the back and we'll move forward. All right, how are we engaging our families?
One very simple way, which, I don't know, we'll see, it's new, we'll see what happens. When we have new students, which in Boston, which I don't know if this is unlike other communities, we have new students all year long in every grade.
Right.
We have students coming and going.
Coming in every day, yep.
Yeah. But also with that, you often don't meet the parents. The
No.
parents will go to we have a welcome center where they do all their registration. The parents will go there because they have to. But when the student actually comes to school, you may never see them. So another way to try to connect with the parents in terms of phone calls and all that is we created an introduction letter and had it translated into several different languages. So now part of our intake process is sending out this letter with our contact, who their dean is, who their advisor is, and then a second page with like all of the collateral people at Excel High School.
Good. So that's helping them get to know the system. How are we engaging them then? How can we connect them to this whole college and career advising in MyCap? That becomes this tremendous opportunity, right? Family engagement?
We started we don't have a lot of access to technology, our department. So we created courses, College and Career Readiness 1, Freshman College and Career Readiness 2 for sophomores, and so on the way up to College and Career Readiness 4. But the reflected piece of it The student has to go home and discuss it with their parent, and the parent has to jot down a couple sentences about what they
Outstanding.
thought about their research.
Outstanding. So having the student go home with it, can I give you some new ideas on that too? So you've got this thing called an online career information system. Why? And many of them will allow the parents to have their own account. So why not have the students go home and do the same activities with their parents and teach them and learn and then see how we connect, right? Remember in last time we met, we talked about how there's some relational dynamics that go on between girls and their mothers when they talk about this stuff. Something quite powerful. But we also have parents who need these skills. And we need parents to understand what their youth are doing around these skills, so that if they come up with a firefighter, the parent's going to be saying, wow, that makes total sense, right? So the more we can help our parents come along and build their capacity around this process, the better our community is, because hopefully they're going to look for other kinds of work in the 2-year college pathways to kind of connect, or maybe go back and get their degree, but they're also going to be able to connect with their children and kind of the pathways that are going on for that. So to me, this is our greatest advantage for the MyCap, is the ability to have a parallel process for the same exact stuff going on between the home and the school, where the student is leading that whole process. So I'm waiting to hear the awesome stories when you come back next year and we talk about this, to hear how we achieve that, because these are pretty magical stories that are going to happen out of this. Okay? Yes, another one.
Sort of along the same line, we had planned on, in our first Getting to Know You activity with the freshmen, sort of having them fill out an online survey about themselves and their strengths and sort of their academic skills or social skills, and then open it up and have parents fill out the same survey about their kids as sort of a reality check. And just sort of to open up lines of communication between parents, counselors, and kids, and also to have kids be able to look and see how their parents see them.
That's awesome. And just to expand a little bit more, wouldn't it be awesome if that were an evening, with food, where the parents are coming to a workshop to do that same activity and learn about the MyCap curriculum and the things you'll be doing, and showing them how they can learn along with them. So we can do it as a family event, which would be really exciting too. I'm getting excited as I talk about it. Yes?
One of the things we try to do is create multiple points of entry, shall we say, for parents, beyond the, here's your child's report card, let's talk about this. One big thing we do is all our 9th graders, in our school, we're a health-based school, so all our 9th graders learn how to take vital signs. And we create what's called a vital signs day. During the whole school day, where parents they come in and have their child take their vital signs. It's basically, we create a clinic downstairs, and it gives the parents a chance to see what their students are doing. Something that would be part of a portfolio piece. But it also gives them a chance to see the good stuff that their kids are doing.
Absolutely.
A lot of times, when the report cards are going out, the parents that are staying are not sitting around the stage to see how well their kids are doing. They're waiting in line to see what's gone wrong and what do we
That's
need
right.
to get addressed.
That's right.
So it gives a nice
That's right.
chance for parents to see the work that their
That's
kids
right.
are doing.
Yeah. I have to say that when parents and our business leaders are able to see the portfolio that demonstrates the skills that are being produced, and in this case, the chance to actually come to the school and see it, they're not talking about grades and test scores. Okay, because they realize that's not why they hire. Have you ever hired someone because they got straight A's? Oh yeah, they got straight A's, we got to hire this one, this is a great one. No, you hire them because of all the skills, social skills and all that. Employers get that, but they don't know what's going on in our schools. Parents, they don't know what we're doing in our schools. So it gets them away from just thinking about those pieces, which are not saying aren't important. I'm saying that will happen naturally as students get more engaged. But when we get family excited about our schools, we get the business excited about our schools, it changes the discourse within our community. And we've seen it happen over and over. So very exciting ideas. I want to go back to what we were talking about you have schools with very high, lots of students coming in, right? So, and I've been in schools where it was a 50% mobility rate. So 50% left, 50% came in. So I know every day, new kids, new things happening, got all that. So we do have to think about systems to help those youth coming in get connected. When you're working in groups, think about having the new student connected with those group and let the youth guide that new individual coming in on how to catch up and engage in the system. So now we got different levels of learning taking place. And it also engages them within that larger community. And then certainly we need to help the parents understand and get some connections on that too, which is really good. Over here, anything? Did we answer the parent piece? We getting there? Pretty good? Close? Lots of ways we can engage parents in this process. Let's see if there's one other. I think that's good. What about employer engagement? Anyone engaging employers? Oh, okay. I guess I asked the question wrong. Here you go. Courtney, tell us how you're engaging employers.
So last week we actually did a mock interview and we had
great.
Partners from all different organizations come in for our 10th graders, and we prepped them for about 3 weeks prior. And it was a great way for the 10th graders just to get their feet wet and see what they'd be
That's awesome.
getting into.
That's great. And so something I want to say for that, as well as when we talk about career fairs, is when we know who the people are that are coming in, having the students use their online career information systems to learn about the industry as well as those businesses means that when that person comes in, the youth are ready to ask questions and they're going to appear much more confident in the discourse they're going to have with those employers. Very powerful. Powerful experience for the youth. Powerful experience as ambassadors to show the business community that we have youth here are the kind of youth that they should be investing in. So we use the mock interview as a great way to build our students' talent, but we can also use it as an opportunity to let the business community know this is what we got going on in here. We've got youth that are intelligent, smart, engaged, ready to interact, and the kinds of employees you want. Right? That leads to internships, that leads to summer jobs and all the other stuff. So thinking about, we've got the online system, we're just taking one more step. We're studying up on, we're learning what kind of questions we want to know about. We're doing and what are we teaching? Career search skills. We're teaching them how, when it's time for them to go interview for a job, they go into these systems to gather this information, and we're simulating and practicing it right there in the school setting. Very powerful stuff on those ends. Walking down here, there were some hands that went up around parent engagement. I'm sorry, employer engagement, sorry.
Well, I'll cover both because
Okay.
For the senior internship agreement, not only does the student sign off on it, teacher signs off on it, but the employer and the parent.
Oh, good. So you got them all connected.
They're all covered.
Good. Okay. Excellent. Other employer engagement.
I'm a business teacher at Marshfield, and I sit on the chamber board, so it's a really great partnership with schools to get the chamber businesses involved and then a lot of connections to place our student interns. And our business students have a lot of exposure to working with local businesses, especially through our EPA program, but we've been kind of talking through like how do we expand that to be open to the whole school and being able to provide opportunities for other students. So whether it's, bringing people in or having guest speakers come in and have students sign up to come hear about a specific career area. We've been kind of talking through that through this committee to try and figure out, how can we expand our reach. So I don't know that we haven't figured out yet, but we're working on it to say, so it's not just our business students that are having those connections.
Right. That's awesome. So looking at how to scale that. Any other ideas, thoughts? All right, let me talk about the career fair. So the career fair is an important experience, but can be made stronger if a couple things happen. I just mentioned the students learning about the businesses that are coming in, right? Doing some research, learning about them, what's the labor market conditions, work conditions, learning about it, and really immersing themselves at that level. The second is we need to have a more intimate relationship with our employers when they're there, because the change process will happen when the employers are talking with the youth and encouraging them and believing that, wow, you've got some talent here that we'd love to learn more about, or here's some ways in which you can continue building it. That caring, encouraging quality from the employer. How do we create those moments? One of the ways I've seen this happen, and I really just kind of blew me away, is that when they come to your career fair, they have to bring materials that the youth can work on from that setting. They have to engage in activities that are going to build their confidence, their self-efficacy, for engaging in the tools, in the activities, in the kinds of performing that would be related to that career. EMTs coming in, then we're saving lives, and they're working on those machines and activities to practice doing that, trying it on, seeing how it goes. Now you're creating a more informal dialogue. You've got youth that know about it, are wanting to engage and ask questions. They're practicing and using the materials. You have an employer who's not only observing, but is interacting with. And that dynamic, I think, is a much richer way of engaging in a career fair than having people just kind of sit and talk, or having a panel, you know, where they talk at the youth. I think this kind of engagement can be real powerful. For the other, let's take the panel. Rather than a panel, use your Zoom. Does everybody have Zoom at school? Some? Skype? We got Skype because it's free? Thank you, good. So we got, Zoom's not free, it's nice though. But Skype is out there. Figure out what the platform might be that you might have. But you can bring those employers in that the students are wanting to learn more about, right? You've got a group, who do we want to talk to? What do we want to learn about? Oh, we'd really like to learn from someone blank. And you can then have those employers come in. There are online systems now that have free access to where youth have done those interviews, and they've stored them. And so you can actually find some of those where they're more canned. But I do like the live, the more intimate type thing that we can do in a virtual space. Remember that we're not doing it just to expose youth to careers, we're doing it to expose employers to our youth. And we're trying to create a relationship where they see our youth as talented and the type of individuals that they need to be investing in. When you're saying, well, how can I get a more full community engagement in that? That's where your Chamber of Commerce comes in. So just to remind you, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has already sent out a whole initiative for local chambers to get their businesses doing more to support youth engagement through different, it can be through a variety of things. What we've just talked about, panel, career fairs, but internship, job shadows, all of that. So the chamber should be able to support us in being able to have some of these dialogues and connect with that. But our goal, especially as we're working with youth that perhaps they don't hire normally, maybe it's due to income, ethnic groups, whatever they see, they don't see our youth as having great potential, we need to change that. And we can change it through these dialogues, okay? Because we've got talented youth. Now we need to put them in a place where they'll be successful in being able to communicate to these others just how talented they are, okay? The higher ed, some of you are in the early pathways for college pathways where they're getting course credits, yes? So you got higher ed engaged? Yes. Do you want to tell us how you did that? Yes? Yes? Oh, I'm going to turn it over to... Okay. That was beautifully done.
That was a quick slide.
Let me try to slide through here.
I'm Jen Fire, New Heights Charter School. As a charter school, part of the process of our charter proposal was to secure a college partner. We're very lucky to have Massasoit Community College at the table. They may be already partnering with a number of the institutions in this room. They're really broadening their reach and trying to provide opportunities for more students to do dual enrollment and to do early college work. So they've been at the table with us from pre-charter, pre-operational, and now we're a 2.5-year-old charter school.
Awesome,
Yeah.
Awesome. So we need to be doing more of that, and that's a big part then of helping our youth see that even before they finish high school, they can begin not only gaining credits, but they can also gain certifications and industry recognized credentials. So, and those can be not just an end, although it could be for some, it can also be an on-ramp to their next piece. So we want to be thinking about those higher ed partners. I've been finding, I'm sure you can probably testify even better, that once we start engaging with our higher ed partners, we find that they're really interested in how they can design programs and can go after other funding to support the kinds of programs that would support our youth. That's the kind of dialogue we're talking about. They're open to it, many. I've just worked on the North Shore and had those conversations. So it'd be really exciting. This is also about disability, getting access in terms of disability. A lot of good programming going on in our colleges right now to support that. So it's really getting in there. Has anyone else been getting connected with your higher ed partners? Starting to?
We also use Massasoit.
All right, so they're being used. Good. Any other ones using Massasoit? No. Which one are you using?
Well, UMass Dartmouth.
UMass Dartmouth, okay. Which ones?
RCC, Bunker Hill, and Web Run.
Bunker Hill and Wentworth? And RCC, all three, good. Any others? Yeah, those? Bunker Hill, good. So, and I think you're finding a positive reception? Yeah, it's really, really important because our youth do not see themselves as belonging in those settings. They don't see themselves belonging in the world of work. That's why we need employer engagement. They don't see themselves belonging in higher ed of any form. That's why we need to find ways to immerse them in those as well. So it really becomes an important piece, but also helping them get these pathways going on. Let's see, I lost my paper, I dropped it somewhere, I put it down. So good, I guess I'm out of things to say. What else do we have on there? Oh, higher ed, any about community-based organizations? We mentioned FFA, 4-H, any other community organizations that are going on that you might be connected with? I know in your health sciences, you've got groups coming in to talk about, to be connecting in partnerships there.
Mass Hire.
Mass Hire, excellent.
The ICA and Artists for Humanity, we don't have a great arts program in our school, so we've picked up this program.
Bringing in some arts programs, awesome. I love Utah, we're not there, but Salt Lake City had this thing called the Olympics. And after it was done, they kept everything. And so all of the physical ed that happens downtown happens on the Olympic facilities. The Olympic group said, don't worry about it, don't put it in your budget, we'll take care of it. And so all the youth are going out to do ice skating and all the different training things that they have, that you would have in the Olympics, the youth get access to. There's lots of community organizations that are looking for outlets to support our youth. We just have to find a way to connect with them. So whether it's arts, I love action theater type things, there's a lot of things that can be beneficial. Well, why don't we start to look at getting ready for next time. This was great. I hope you liked the round robin thing. I'm hoping when we come in next time, we're going to continue this kind of dialogue, sharing, because we're all going to be in the same place. No one is going to have a lot going on around the things we're going to talk about next time. So hopefully we're going to share practices and ideas. Okay, getting ready for next time. You're going to need to go back through your online career information system. You may have to contact the vendor, look online for where they might have some webinars. But what you're going to need to figure out is, how does your system track usage? What are the kinds of reports that you can get about how many youth are engaged, what the portfolio that's been completed, what kinds of reports can you run so you can track the implementation, fidelity, and quality? You're going to have those conversations with your administration. You're going to need to do a little bit more work on what you've got for your activities so you've got something to talk about, right? But then you're going to have to work with administration to figure out how much time are you going to be given. Some of you already have that figured out, which is great. How often can we do this? What kind of buy-in are we going to be able to try to gain? All of those kinds of elements for implementation. And then if you're only getting 4 classroom periods in a semester or across a year, then you have to adapt accordingly. With the idea that we're going to be building out the story of the impact of this. What can we get to start? Is it we want to go to a smaller group within the school? We want to find our choir? Is it we've got a whole grade level? Is it a department? Who wants to help us take ownership so we can integrate this in? We've already heard about the health group, so we've already got a good plan. In your school, that's awesome, we're there. But how many lessons? How often? We need to start thinking through the parameters. If they want you to do it 10 times and you've only got lessons for 6, right? We've got to grow. So we got to be ready to be able to handle either going bigger or going smaller. And then the rolling out the program. How are we going to introduce it? Are we going to get some professional development time? Is it something that we need to record and all the teachers are going to be asked to watch? Do we have some time to build some communication materials? We'll work through those next time, the kinds of the stakeholders and what messages they might need. But we need to be thinking what kind of resources and support we might get. It would be great if you were able to get some summer planning, just a little bit to help you guys come together, get ready so that when the fall starts, you're moving, okay? Things like that. So there are some resources that might be helpful to have as you're going forward, but it may be that you can use the rest of this academic year to support that as well. Questions on that? Now, you're not alone, and we're not just dropping you and saying come back in a month. Or is it 2 months? Is it 2 months? It's a month. It's pretty soon, 6 weeks. We'll cut it in half, month and a half. We have a workshop on the 27th that we're going to do. So it's going to be an online webinar that'll be recorded. Okay, it's going to talk about the getting prepared for workshop 3, going through some of the things. We're also looking at having a webinar to help you bring your administration in to talk through these issues that we just talked about and helping understand why this is important, what might be helpful, things they can think about, so that you're not having to lift this all by yourself. Okay? Does that seem fair enough? And again, we'll record it so that if they weren't able to hear it, you can still come back and see it. So we probably got 2 webinars we want to do before we come back together as a group that are designed to support you. If you've got questions or things coming up within your group that are specific and you're saying, hey, how can you help me with blank? Please write us, because if it's for you, it's probably similar to other groups as well. And it'll help us think about the content that we might want to cover. Okay? We'll also make these webinars interactive. So if you have questions or things coming up, use it as an opportunity to bring those questions in. Okay? Because we definitely want to take the time to help you prepare for the best kind of design and implementation plan down the road. Don't forget to fill out the evaluation. It's in your email, okay? So click on it and fill it out. We had 80% last time. I know we can do better, but also we really shifted today. Last time was heavy on content. We got a lot of feedback, not enough time to work. This time you got a lot of time to work, so we want to see how that went, to see if we need more structure or more prescription, what are we needing. So please give us feedback as we think through this. We plan to do this next year. So everything we're learning and everything we're watching and trying to do here, we're also thinking about, okay, how can we refine and build towards next year as well, okay? But we're also wanting to be thinking through how to better support you. So in that evaluation, if there's things you didn't have a chance to say that would be helpful in helping you be successful, please let us know, because that's the kind of stuff we want to be able to support you on as well, okay? So it is trying to make today was about building you into a community so you can see each other, learn from each other, and start to see that you're all in very similar areas and very different areas. You have strengths. Each of you have strengths that you're bringing to the table. Great, exciting ideas. We're sharing those, and together we're hoping to share the innovative ideas that come up. So it's really exciting. So I've enjoyed the day. Lisa, did you want to say something as we get ready to close?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. At the beginning, we asked you all what grade you would be interested in kind of working on. And that is because we're hoping that at the end of workshop 3, we'll have at least grade 9, we'll have examples from grade 9 through 12 that we can begin sharing among you. So when you go to do your other grades, you're going to have examples from other people.
Yeah.
So workshop 3 really, and then talking about the mechanics of it all, presupposes that you've planned out that year.
Mm-hmm.
So our hope is that when you come for workshop 3, you will have your grade level framework complete. So that framework that's in the back, you know, that first column, we call it learning objectives. I think it actually is titled what students should know and be able to do. Those are your learning objectives. So for all 3 domains, thinking across and coming to workshop 3 with A grade. Ready? Because you can't really, it's like I said to somebody earlier, it's the chicken and the egg, right? You want to do this work, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? If you don't know what you're going to do, that back and forth. So it would be great if you kind of have that 1 grade framework complete, and then implementation really becomes, there's a more reality towards looking at implementation when you know how much you want to do and what you want to accomplish. Okay, so just another plug for, please come with as much of 1 grade level of a framework complete for the work done. Great.
All right, good. And we know some of you are farther along and you've got everything. That's fine. Everybody's in great shape. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We good for today?
Really appreciate it.
All right.